Good morning. My name's Don Hoyle. I have the privilege of being the first one to speak here, but I want to welcome everyone. This is obviously not a happy event, but it is a reason, I think, to celebrate that we can turn this into something that celebrates people with disabilities. The ARC Michigan has, and our chapters across the state, our 30 chapters, have always sought to put people with disabilities in the right light. We feel that our fellow citizens who happen to have disabilities should be treated the same way any other person would be treated. They ought to belong to their communities, be welcome in their communities, be full participants, be active, and contribute to their communities. That's the goal. Our goal. That's the goal of our chapters. And on that note, I really want to thank everyone who's contributed to our campaign. And we have to end stigma. There's no reason people with disabilities should be discriminated against just by virtue of having a disability. It's part of the human condition. And we all ought to celebrate diversity and the kinds of things that make us different, but together stronger. The kind of a world I want would include anyone, whether they're different or they're the same. And I think that's true for most of us. It's my privilege now to introduce the person whose efforts behind the scene have caused all this to happen, and is going to help us make lemonade out of lemons. And it's a person who we owe a recent debt of gratitude for assuring that all students in Michigan will go to school and be safe and free from restraint and seclusion and from the trauma that it brings. So with the recent victories in that regard, and with his efforts on behalf of people with disabilities, which are legendary at this point, I want to welcome to this effort and to speak to you, Lieutenant Governor Calley, a hero.
Well, thank you, Don. That was far too generous. But I wanted to draw your attention to some things that have happened over the course of the last few years that give reason for optimism, that the world really is changing, and it's changing for the better, in spite of the way that we, or the things that we've heard as of recently. You know, back a few years ago, following an election, there was a new person who came into office at that time, Justice Bernstein. I had never met him before, but I did know that I was working in the executive office to try and change the way that the state of Michigan itself hired people. And we have a big workforce ourselves. How do we hire people, and how do we get better at hiring more talented people with disabilities? And so I reached out to Justice Bernstein, and I asked, would you like to join me in this effort in changing the state and its own internal practices? And he said, yes, I would love to do that, but why on earth would we stop with the state government itself? Why wouldn't we bring this message out to the rest of Michigan, to talk to businesses, small ones and medium-sized ones and big ones, about the virtues of creating a more inclusive workforce? And so out of that started a partnership where we just went around different chambers of commerce and Rotary clubs and different places where people that make hiring decisions meet to talk about this effort, or to talk about the thing that is missing in so many workplaces and so many parts of our society. And then we saw really the biggest piece of legislation, the most substantial piece of legislation to come out of Washington, D.C. in 25 years, with the passage of the ABLE Act in Michigan. The policymakers in Michigan saw the value in that, became one of the first states in the entire country to implement that, and it was recently signed into law and is now available and signed into law and implemented. Now ABLE accounts available right here in Michigan to take away one of those obstacles to saving and preparing for the future. And then in the last few weeks, we saw an accelerated effort to get legislation that frankly is 10 years past due, longer than that, but 10 years ago, legislation should have passed that banned the restraint and seclusion practices in our schools, and for some reason it didn't at that time. And it sat there for a long time, but there's an effort where it's a beautiful thing where advocates from all over, the self-advocates and parent advocates and educators that just said enough and made the system change. I've never seen a piece of legislation go from where it was all the way through to being sent to the governor in just that short period of time that we just saw. And it's a testament to the hard work and determination of people in making the world work better for everybody. And so I look at this with optimism. I look at these different steps that have been made, and I look at the changes that are happening. I look at the energy that is behind this movement today. And make no mistake, this isn't just an effort that to try and change policy, that this is a social movement that we're all a part of. And we're making progress. And this is an exciting time. But we have to recognize, and those audio tapes that recently were revealed are a reminder that we're not anywhere close to finished. Unfortunately, we're probably still closer to the beginning than we are to the end. But what we're talking about here today, and this is the main point. What we're talking about here today is not charity. We are not talking about approaching the expectation of inclusive communities from a charitable standpoint. I want you to think about this as civil rights, right? That this is the next important step, the next great step in the civil rights movement in America. Because when you think about the way that our communities still can set aside or segregate or discount people with disabilities, it is clear that we wouldn't accept that reality for any other person. And so we cannot allow it. We cannot accept it for people with disabilities. So where do we go from here? What this is about is trying to both raise awareness of the distance that we have to go, but to get the rest of the world to join in this movement, to do the part in the space that is right around us, to be inclusive and accepting, to value. And by the way, it's also a time for all of us to do some self-reflecting. You know, sometimes even us advocates have a hard time seeing past the disability and to the potential. And so this is a time for self-reflection for all of us. I'd shared a story before when my daughter came home with a report card and it had a reading score on it. My daughter has autism. And on this reading score, it said she was at level 1 to 2, and it was at the end of kindergarten. And I looked at the key on the side of it to see what that meant, and she was supposed to be at level 4. And I thought, well, that's disappointing. A little surprised by that, but disappointed. And she had fallen behind the rest of the class. And so we contacted the teacher and we asked, what is it about? Could you help us understand what she's struggling with so that we can work with her at home and get her caught up, and by the time first grade she'll be ready to go. And the teacher said, no, she's not at level 1 to 2, she's at level 12. And so I went back and I looked, and in the box it said 12. It said 12. Had my son come home with that exact same report card, I would have seen the number 12. But it was my daughter with autism, and I saw something different. And that was a real wake-up call. Because if that can happen to the person who is tied for first place in the world on Reagan's biggest advocate, how much harder is it for other people? And so this is an internal challenge too. It's not just condemning remarks that have no place in our society. And I mean no place in our society. but it's about us reflecting on what we can do to take this further, what we can do to make the world work a little better for people that weren't at the table when the world was made, when the world was designed, when our systems, when our a way of doing things was made, people that were set aside and put in institutions at that time. How do we get that back? How do we make it work better for them? It'll make us all better. It'll make our communities better. It'll make our workplaces better. It'll make our schools better. And you're all a part of it. So I want to thank you for taking the time and being so dedicated to this. I want to thank you for answering the call when these policy decisions are up and the system gets flooded with contacts of people saying, we got to do this. And I hope that we can take this and turn it into momentum to end the stigma, to start the conversation with a bunch of people that maybe never even thought about it before, to use this as a way to advance a more inclusive world. And so with the GoFundMe page, which is dedicated, all the resources dedicated to ARC of Michigan that does such amazing work, not just with the anti-stigma, but with across the board, just such great work. But to try and put some resources and some muscle behind this message to get to people that we've never gotten to before. And so there's been dozens that have contributed and thousands of dollars, but we're just getting started. I'm hoping that there'll be hundreds and then maybe thousands of people that will want to be a part of it. And we've seen contributions from $5 to $2,000 made on the site. And we are so we're excited, but we're just getting started. So I invite you to be a part of that too. And so it's now my honor to introduce to you the next speaker, my main man, David Taylor.
Hi, my name is David Taylor. I'm on the board of directors of TAS, and I'm also on TAS is a national self-advocacy organization, and I'm also a part of the Michigan DD Council. I believe that everybody with disabilities should all have the right to live and to work into society, no matter what their disability is. And also, as a person with a disability, I was outraged when I heard the remarks and the comments on that. And to really, as an advocate, I believe that people should understand that person-first language is more important than anything in life. As a person with a disability, I believe that we have the right to be in society, and also for us to never go back 40 years and push forward and move forward in this new era and in this new generation. We're advocates, but people who's helping push this movement for me not to go back into time in 40 years. And I thank y'all for letting me speak here today, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to welcome Stephanie Lear as well.
Hi everybody. As David said, my name is Stephanie Laird. Not only am I an advocate for people with disabilities, but I am also a peer mentor at Community Living Services Oakland County, and I'm glad we are all here today to support this. But I wish we didn't have to be here today, because in this day and age, somebody should not have said what was said. I don't care who said it. The fact is, it was said regardless of who said it. But I also want to say that person-first language is very important, and people with disabilities should be referred to as if as a person, not by their disability. And just as a side note for me, I have always said I may not work for community living services for forever, but I will be an advocate till the day I die, because I'm hoping that it gets to be less and less, but unfortunately, the way it's looking, there will always be something that needs to be fought for. And just really quick, I also want to add that I speak as well as all my other friends and colleagues. We speak for the people that cannot speak for themselves. And I just thank you for this opportunity.
Well, I don't know what town Stephanie lives in, but I think she ought to be mayor. Malika Newman?
I was born by the river in a little tent. Then I go to my brother. I say, brother, help me, please. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. My name is Malchiah Newman. My name is Malchiah Newman, and I am the team leader for Community Network Services Anti-Stigma Program. And I believe we're the only anti-stigma program in the state of Michigan. We've been in existence from 2005, and we've been fighting stigma every day since 2005. And here we are in 2016, still fighting stigma. But I don't see that as a bad thing. Even though what brought us all together here today was harmful and painful, it was still a gift, because we are letting people know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. I have a hidden disability. I have bipolar disorder, and I wasn't diagnosed until I was in my 40s. So my whole adult life was affected by a disease I didn't know I had. But I thank God there was a name for it. I thank God there was a pill for it. And I thank God CMH was there to give it to me. So now, all these 11 years later, what some people may view as a curse has really been my greatest gift. Because I wouldn't be standing here speaking with you today if I hadn't had that diagnosis. I would not be traveling all over the country and as far away as Nova Scotia, Canada, talking on behalf of people with mental health conditions and disabilities of all kinds if I didn't have that diagnosis. So I'm not looking at a glass half empty today. I'm looking at a glass that's overflowing, because we are letting people know enough is enough. A change is not going to come. A change is here. The change is here in this room. Everyone that's sitting in these seats, everyone that's watching by TV, everybody that's hearing on the radio or reading in the paper knows the change is here. because we cannot allow people to be relegated to second-class status for something that they didn't ask for. I've never met a person yet that told me, sign me up for schizophrenia, put me at the head of the line. I want to be born with a birth defect. I've not heard that yet. People are people regardless of what their physical condition is, regardless of what their mental condition is, regardless of what anybody views as a negative. It's really a gift. So many parents have said, if I hadn't had a child with Down syndrome, I wouldn't have known how much I could love, how much they could teach me. We need to look at people differently. That's why I'm so glad that a little boy with Down syndrome is now a spokesperson for Oshkosh. And he's adorable. Absolutely adorable. We have to stop putting the limits on people based on your limited idea of what I can or cannot do. You cannot set boundaries for me. You cannot determine how high or how far I will go. That's my job. That's my job. And the people that work with me and stand with me and support me, that's our job. We don't need you to do that. We need you to get out of our way. Because, baby, guess what? We coming. Whether you want us or not, we coming. And the change is here.
My name is John Kinch. I'm the Executive Director of Macomb County Community Mental Health. It's very thoughtful and inspiring to listen to the words that have been spoken here today. You know who we are, all of us? We are people. We are people who care about and work with other people, particularly so in our business. We're the people who work with people who have developmental disabilities and mental illnesses and substance use disorders. We are the same people who work with those people who have such ongoing challenges related to stigma. And to begin to stomp out stigma, we're in the 21st century. Stigma should have long been gone by now. But we're going to continue to fight the fight, and we're going to continue to support our consumers, or our people, and continue to improve on their lives, and so we can have a better world for all of us. That's what we need. Lieutenant Governor Calley was very instrumental in being able to put together a statement, a pledge itself that speaks to how we're all going to work collectively and collaboratively to address stigma. And as he signs it here, we certainly want to thank him for his support, thank him for his GoFundMe page, and for bringing this anti-stigma campaign back into Macomb County, back into the metro region, and to the people that really are going to best benefit from having a stigma-free environment. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor Calley. And then we will take questions at any time.
Lisa Lepine. She's the executive director of our chapter here in Macomb County.
On the day that the tapes were first released, I actually reached out to both the chief executive, Mark Hackle's office, and to the mayor's office. And I did receive telephone calls back from both offices, and I have spoken with Mayor Fouts. He also has contacted me to put together a meeting that I'm hoping will lead to additional education and information for him so we can continue to work on this. They were positive conversations, yes.
I haven't personally talked with him recently, although he did make a contribution to the GoFundMe page. There is when I first heard the comments, I think like anybody else, I was pretty mad about it. I took a little bit of time to just reflect. I don't like to respond when I'm mad, but to just let it sit for a little while. And since conversations with some people right here in this room, looking for what the best response would be, and what we decided to do was to try and turn it into an opportunity to restart the conversation around the need to end stigma in our world. And it shows up in a lot of different ways. Most of the time, it's much more subtle than what you see in those tapes, but it's there. And so that was the response, and I'm so pleased to see that's really a lot of other people were thinking the same thing. Was, as long as this conversation has started, maybe we can use it as a teachable moment, and to really put some energy and some passion behind the work of making the world work better for everybody. And if that's the outcome of this, then I think that we can all take that carry that same message and have the same attitude that Micaiah just talked about, which was our cup is overflowing, right? Not just half full, but we're about making the world work better for people, and we'll be better because of it. I wanted to share too, as long as if people are watching and listening, and that there's I try to go out of my way to spend time with people with Down syndrome, make friends, and to whether it's online through social media or different events and things at person, because there's a different type of warmth and positivity there that I've seen or experienced with anybody else, and so the sincerity is something that really touches me, and I want other people to experience that or to know it, to what it's like to have a relationship, a friendship with somebody who is sincere to the core. And I work in politics, right? So, do you know how much time that is spent trying to figure out what are the sincere intentions of the person that I'm talking with right now? So, who has the disability? I look at this as there's different is not less, and so sometimes differences, they might come with challenges in terms of either mobility or access and trying to get out there and live the life a person wants to live. But sometimes those differences come with strengths that I think are just so advanced beyond what so many of the rest of us could ever really experience. And that's what I want people to see out of this, is to go out of their way to find the potential, to see the beauty, to see that the core of who a person is, and it's really you'll be inspired if you take that step. I promise you, if you take the step to form relationships with people that are different from you, you will find out that it enriches your life, and you end up getting more out of the relationship than they did. And so I just want more people to experience that. Well, I think about that conversation described that I originally had with Justice Bernstein on the employment efforts within the state of Michigan. Why would we stop there? Why would we stop there? I mean, this is something that it's not just across Southeast Michigan, and it's not just across Michigan, and not just America either. Around the world, this is different areas and regions and societies are in different places of acceptance and inclusion, and the entire world has a long way to go. I can't point to any place on planet Earth where I say that's exactly where we need to get. So why don't we just make this the place where everybody looks at and says that's where we need to get? And by the way, how do we know when we've arrived? How do we know when we've arrived? Now, I've thought about this because whenever I'm working on policy things, how do I know if we're being successful? How do we know when we got to that point when we have the type of inclusive society that we want? And here's what I came up with. When it's no longer a big deal for a person with a disability of any sort to be wildly successful in their life. Because now, like, I see things like sometimes I'll see something on the news and it'll be a person with a disability and they did something and they were really successful and it makes big news and everybody feels real good about it and I feel good about that too, except for the fact that it is so unusual to be recognized that it doesn't, that it's a big, I want it to be the expected outcome. The thing we just assume that's going to happen. It's not a big deal. It's not even newsworthy anymore because that's what always happens or what most of the time happens, at least as much as what happens for the rest of us. And that, so that's when we'll know we have arrived. Thank you.
For one more question.
Beg your pardon? I am. I don't have any opinion on guilt or innocence at all. I see whether it was his remarks or not, I see it as somebody saying this is a good idea to do this better, whether he was the person who issued the remarks or not. I don't have any firsthand knowledge. I don't have any intent to try to find out if they were his remarks or not. The remarks by whoever made them were really unfortunate. And if we can turn that into something else, that's what we should do. I'd like to welcome the people who are represented on this pledge, those agencies. I'd like to, if they could stand and come up here with us and join us. I just feel better about it not just being one organization or seeing only one organization as part of this, because a lot of people had a lot to do with bringing this together today, and they represent organizations that signed the pledge already. So, and we'll still take questions. Any of us, I think, would take a question.
Well, there'll be a process that local voters go through in terms of, I try not to get ahead of voters or constituents in an area and the decisions that they make and who represent them. So from that standpoint, I assume that will get worked out. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to use this awareness and this discussion to make something good happen or something